When my son walked past me that day, he did not look up. He did not smile. He did not even pause the way people do when they pass someone they know. He just kept walking, as if I were another face on the street, as if I had never held him in my arms, as if I had not spent half my life trying to give him everything I could. I remember standing there with a grocery bag in my hand. The handles were cutting into my fingers, but I barely felt the pain. What I felt was something deeper, a kind of quiet ache that spreads through the chest and settles behind the ribs, the way winter settles on an old house. He was walking beside his wife. She was carrying a small paper bag, and the two of them looked like they were discussing something. I could not hear their words, only the softness of their voices blending with the street noise. I whispered his name, but it came out too soft, too fragile. The wind caught it before it reached him. When he finally passed, for a moment I thought he might turn around, the way he used to when he was little, when he always checked to make sure I was still there, still watching, still ready to catch him when he ran too fast. But he didn't turn back. He kept going, and there I stood, in the middle of the sidewalk, holding a bag of vegetables for a meal I never finished cooking. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table alone. The light above me flickered the way old lights do. I kept replaying that moment, hoping I had imagined it, hoping he truly had not seen me, hoping something, anything, other than the truth was behind his silence. But the truth has a way of settling quietly in a room. The truth sits down beside you, even when you want to push it away. My son had changed. Marriage had changed him. Life had taken him down a road where somehow I no longer existed. That night, I realized something I was not ready to understand. Sometimes the people you love the most can forget you so gently you barely feel it happening. Until one day, they walk past you like a stranger. I was not always a woman standing alone in a kitchen with a flickering light. There was a time when my house was full of footsteps, laughter, and gentle chaos. My son, Daniel, was the heart of that chaos. He was born on a rainy morning, the kind of rain that drummed on the hospital windows and made the whole world sound soft and distant. When the nurse placed him in my arms, he looked at me with wide, curious eyes, as if he had been waiting for me long before he arrived. He had the gift of making simple moments feel grand. He would run through the hallway, his little socks slipping on the tile, his arms stretched out like a tiny airplane. And when he crashed into me with a hug, the whole world felt right, even in the middle of my exhaustion. His father worked long hours. Sometimes he traveled for weeks at a time. So most days, it was just Daniel and me, two people building a small world inside a modest home. I remember how he used to follow me into the kitchen and ask, "Mom, can I help?" He would climb onto a stool and stir whatever was in the pot, even if it was just water warming for tea. He liked the steam because it made him laugh when it fogged up his glasses. When he started school, I became the mother who packed extra snacks, just in case. I always put a little note in his lunchbox. Nothing fancy, just a few words. "Have fun today. I love your smile. You are brave." Simple words. But he kept them. Every single one. I found them years later, folded neatly in a shoebox under his bed. Back then, he told me everything. Who he sat with at lunch, which teacher scared him, how he wanted to be an astronaut on Monday and a doctor on Tuesday, and a man who lived in a cabin with 12 cats on Wednesday. Our home was never grand, but it was warm. We shared meals at the small wooden table by the window. When the sun set, the light would fall on the table like honey, and we would sit there long after dinner, talking about little things that matter more than people realize. His teenage years were quieter, as teenage years often are. He still talked to me, but his world grew bigger. Friends, sports, homework, dreams he carried privately. He was never rude, never distant, but he grew into a young man who was learning how to walk on his own feet, and I stepped back to give him space. When he left for college, the house felt softer, quieter. The walls no longer echoed with hurried footsteps in the morning. I learned to eat dinner alone, listening to the radio for company, but he called almost every day. Even if he had nothing to say, he would call. "Mom, I'm just checking in. Mom, I tried that pasta recipe. Mom, I miss home food." Those calls were little gifts, always unexpected, always warm. Everything shifted when he met her, the woman who would become. Her name was Leela. The first time he told me about her, his voice had a softness I had never heard before. A kind of hope wrapped in nervousness. "Mom, she's different," he said. I remember smiling even though the phone pressed too hard against my ear. Different good? Different amazing. He brought her home one weekend. She was polite, gentle, and smiled with her whole face. Her hair was long and dark, and she carried herself with a quiet confidence. I liked her. I really did, but there was something in her eyes when she looked at me. Not unkindness, just distance. A polite veil between us. I told myself it was normal. People take time. Relationships take time. Families take time. But I felt something shifting even then. Something small. Something I could not name. I watched Daniel try to balance both worlds, his new love and the home he came from. And for a while, he did it beautifully. But the steps he took toward her side of life grew and the steps he took toward mine grew softer, lighter, less frequent. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cruel. It happened the way a season changes, one unnoticed degree at a time. I still remember the day he told me he was proposing. He came home with flowers in his hand. He placed them on the table like he used to when he was a boy, bringing me dandelions from the yard. "Mom, I'm going to ask Lila to marry me." I hugged him. I meant every bit of that hug. But when he let go, something else let go inside me too. Something quiet. Something I didn't recognize yet. The wedding was small and beautiful. They looked happy. They looked complete. And I stood there, smiling, holding on to my purse with both hands as if it could hold me steady. People talk about losing children to tragedy or illness. People talk about losing them to distance or disagreements. But nobody warns you about the gentle loss, the soft one. The one that arrives with a smile and a wedding. Things began to change. The changes do not arrive like storms. They came like small clouds drifting across a blue sky. Easy to ignore, easy to excuse. At first, it was the missed calls. Nothing urgent, nothing alarming, just small breaks in a pattern that had once been consistent. One evening, I called him after work. It rang many times before going to voicemail. His message played, his voice sounding younger than he was now. I ended the call and told myself he must be busy. People become busy. Lives become crowded. Nothing to worry about. He called back 2 days later. "Sorry, Mom. Things are hectic." His voice was rushed, soft, like he was speaking from somewhere far away. Then came the conversations that felt like they were carefully measured. "Mom, I might not make it for your birthday dinner." "Mom, we're planning something with her family this year." "Mom, I'll call you later, all right?" I understood. I truly did. Marriage blends families. People build new traditions. But understanding did not stop the ache. One afternoon, I called him after work. A woman's voice answered. "Leela." "Hello?" "Hi, is Daniel there?" "He's asleep. He had a long day." "Oh." I didn't realize. "Tell him I called." "I will." But her tone was polite, just polite, nothing more. Weeks later, he told me they were moving to a place closer to her parents. "It just makes sense," he said. "Her parents need help sometimes, and the neighborhood is nice." I nodded. He couldn't see me, but I nodded anyway. Life has a way of shifting the ground beneath your feet without warning. The first moment that truly stung happened on a quiet Sunday. I had prepared a small basket of homemade cookies, the kind he used to steal from the tray before they cooled. I decided to surprise them with a visit. When I arrived, I knocked gently. Leela opened the door. Her smile was tight. "Oh," she said, "I didn't know you were coming." I felt my heart sink, though she hadn't said anything unkind. "I brought these," I said, lifting the basket. "Just something sweet." She stepped aside, but her body language said everything. The visit was unexpected, unwelcome, disruptive. Daniel came out of the bedroom, his hair messy, his shirt wrinkled. "Mom, is everything all right?" "I was just in the area," I lied. "I thought I'd stop by." He looked at Leela. Something unspoken passed between them. "We were about to go out," he said gently. "Maybe next weekend." The basket felt heavy in my hands, even though it weighed almost nothing. I nodded and smiled, the way people do when they try to hide disappointment. "Of course, next weekend." But next weekend never came. More small clouds, more silent shifts. The day that still sits in my memory like a stone was a rainy afternoon. I was walking home from the market, the bag of vegetables swinging softly by my side. The street was crowded with umbrellas and hurried footsteps. That's when I saw them, Daniel and Leela, walking side by side. He was carrying 2 cups of coffee. She was laughing at something he had just said. They looked happy, complete, in a world entirely their own. I slowed my steps. I expected him to see me. I expected his eyes to light up the way they always had. But he didn't look up. He passed me with the certainty of someone who didn't know I existed. My son, my boy, the child who once cried when I was late picking him up from school. He walked right past me. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words softened into silence. The world around me blurred, not from tears, from realization. Later that night, when I sat alone in my kitchen, I understood something I had never wanted to understand. I was no longer part of my son's world. Not by anger, not by conflict, but by quiet fading, like a photograph left too long in the sun. The turning point did not arrive with a loud moment. It came with a phone call that felt too polite for a son to give his mother. It was a Wednesday evening. The sky outside my window was purple, the way it gets just before the light dies. My phone rang, and his name appeared. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. But when I answered, his voice was soft in a way that didn't feel warm. "Mom, I wanted to talk to you about something." My fingers tightened around the phone. Not from fear, from instinct. "Of course," I said. "What is it?" He hesitated. That hesitation said more than his next words ever could. "Leela feels that maybe we need a little space." Space? The word felt foreign in my mouth. Just for a while, not forever. Just while we settle into our routine. I closed my eyes. "What kind of space, Daniel?" Another pause. Maybe fewer visits. Fewer calls, at least for now. There it was. The gentle knife. Sharp, but wrapped in softness. I whispered, "If that's what you need." My voice didn't crack. Not then. It waited until later, when I was alone. For the next few months, I lived in quieter weeks. Days without calls. Evenings without updates. Nights where the house seemed to breathe more slowly, as if it too felt the emptiness. Sometimes I would dial his number and stop before pressing call. I didn't want to be the mother who pushed her child away by wanting him too much. One morning, a letter arrived in the mail. Not a handwritten one, typed, formal. It was an invitation to their housewarming party. I stared at the envelope for a long time. It felt like an invitation sent out of obligation, not love. Still, I went. Because I was his mother, and mothers show up, even when they are unsure where they belong. When I arrived, the house was full of people. Her family, friends, colleagues. Laughter floated through the rooms like warm air. Daniel greeted me with a polite smile. Not cold, just distant. "Thanks for coming, Mom," he said. "We weren't sure you'd make it." The way he said it, you, instead of you of all people, told me more than he meant to reveal. I placed my gift on the table. A framed photo of him as a child, running through the garden with a kite. I thought it might remind him of home. Hours passed. He never opened it. At one point, I overheard a conversation from across the room. Two women were talking softly. "That's his mother?" "Yes. She doesn't seem very involved." "Well, she's unaround much." They smiled politely when they noticed me nearby. But the words stayed. Not around much. The mother who raised him. The mother who stood alone in the kitchen many nights waiting for him to call. After the party, people slowly left. And I stayed behind to help clean the dishes. Old habits die slow. Leela watched me from the hallway, her expression unreadable. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I don't mind." But her eyes said something else. After a few quiet minutes, she stepped closer. "Daniel and we're trying to build our own space," she said carefully. "I hope you understand." I looked at her. She wasn't cruel. She was simply protecting her world. Everyone protects their world. "I do understand," I whispered, "but I am still his mother." A silence followed. Not hostile, not warm. Simply a quiet gap between two women who loved the same man in different ways. Life went on. Months passed. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays. He sent short text messages when he remembered. I replied with longer ones, then deleted half my words before sending them. I didn't want to overwhelm him. The real breaking point came on a rainy evening. Rain has a way of bringing old things to the surface. Perhaps that's why life chose that moment. I had been feeling unwell for days, a deep, stubborn tiredness that settled in my bones. I decided to visit the clinic. The doctor recommended some tests and told me to rest on the way home. Soaked from the rain, I walked past the small cafe near the market. And that's when I saw them again. Daniel and Leela, sitting by the window. They were laughing, their hands touching lightly on the table. The kind of moment that couples cherish without realizing it. I stood outside for a long moment, watching the rain slide down the glass between us. I wanted to walk in. I wanted to knock on the window and wave. But something stopped me. Not fear, not pride, a realization. They looked perfect without me in the picture. Complete. Balanced. A mother is supposed to bring stability, but sometimes, without meaning to, she becomes the imbalance in her child's new life. I walked away slowly, letting the rain hide the wetness on my face. That night, I made a decision. Not out of anger, not out of hurt, out of love. I would step back, truly step back, give them the space they clearly needed, not because they asked, but because I wanted my son to have a life free from the pressure I never meant to place on him. And so, without announcing it, without sending a message, without making a scene, I let go of the last thread I had been holding. Letting go is not a moment. It's a slow unwinding of the heart. The next few months settled into a quiet rhythm. I went to work. I cooked small meals for myself. I read books that had gathered dust. I learned how to enjoy silence, even when it felt heavy. I didn't call him. I didn't text him. Not because I didn't miss him, but because I had realized something about love. Love is not holding on until the other person feels trapped. Love is sometimes stepping back, even when every part of you wants to hold tight. During those months, the loneliness sat beside me like a familiar shadow. But there was peace in it too, a tired kind of peace. Then one afternoon, as I watered the small plant near my window, my phone rang. His name appeared. For a moment, my breath caught. My fingers trembled. But I answered with a calm voice. "Hello, Daniel. Mom, I haven't heard from you." I looked at the leaves on the plant. Drops of water clung to them like little crystals. "You seemed busy," I said softly. "I didn't want to interrupt your life." There was silence on the other end. A long one. "Mom, did I do something wrong?" The question surprised me. Not because it wasn't true, but because he finally heard the distance he had created. "You didn't do anything wrong," I said. "And neither did I." Another pause. Then his voice broke slightly. "Mom, can I come over?" Something warm and fragile bloomed inside me. "Yes," I said. "I'll be home." When he arrived, he stood in the doorway, uncertain. He looked older than the boy I raised. He also looked younger than the man who had drifted away. "Mom," he whispered, stepping forward. "I'm sorry." The apology wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was soft, sincere. I opened my arms and he walked into them the way he used to when he was small. His head rested on my shoulder. His breath trembled. "I didn't realize," he said, "how far I drifted." "You were building a life," I answered gently. "That's what children do. That's what they're supposed to do." "But I forgot you," he whispered. "I didn't mean to." I closed my eyes. The kitchen smelled of warm tea. The light above us hummed softly. "You forgot me a little," I said, "and I missed you a lot. But we're here now." We sat at the table, the same table where we once shared meals when he was a child. He told me about his life, his work, his worries, his dreams, things he hadn't shared in a long time. Then he told me something else. Leela didn't understand at first. She thought I needed space to grow. And she wasn't wrong, I said. Too much. I let it become distance. He lifted his eyes. "She wants to talk to you. She's outside." I blinked slowly. The moment felt surreal. When Lila entered, she looked nervous, her shoulders tense, her hands clasped. "Hello," she said softly. I nodded. "Hello, dear." She stepped closer. "I didn't realize how much he needed you," she said. "I thought I was helping. I thought he would feel freer." Her voice wavered. Instead, I pushed him away from someone who loved him deeply. "It happens," I said gently. "Life is complicated. Love is complicated." She looked at me with eyes that were no longer distant. There was understanding there, warmth, regret. "I hope we can start again," she whispered. I smiled. "We already have." They stayed for dinner. We cooked together, all three of us. My small kitchen felt warmer than it had in years. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a movie ending. But it was real. And sometimes real is better than perfect. After they left, I stood at the doorway, watching them walk down the path. This time, my son didn't walk past me. He turned around. He waved. His smile was the same one he had when he was a boy with fogged glasses in the kitchen. And in that small gesture, the cracks that had formed in my heart began to mend. Not completely, but enough. Enough to breathe, enough to hope, enough to feel like a mother again. Life did not change overnight. Relationships rarely do. Healing is slow, quiet, like dew forming on the grass at dawn. But the days that followed were softer. Daniel called more often, sometimes just to say good morning, sometimes to ask about a recipe, sometimes for no reason at all. Those calls warmed the corners of my days. Leela visited too. At first, she brought small gifts: flowers, tea, a book she thought I might enjoy. Then she started coming without gifts, which felt even better. Just to talk, she would say. We sat together in the living room, two women learning how to share space, learning how to build a bridge, one quiet conversation at a time. One evening, as we washed dishes together after dinner, she said, "I thought you were strong, so strong you didn't need anyone." I smiled. I am strong. But even strong people ache when they're alone too long. She nodded slowly. We won't let you be alone again. It wasn't a promise. It was a kindness. There were days when the old ache returned, when I remembered the months of silence, the moment he walked past me on the street. But memory is not a chain. It is only a reminder of where we have been. One Sunday afternoon, Daniel brought me a framed photo. It was the picture of him running with the kite, the one he never opened at the housewarming. "I found this while unpacking," he said. "Can I keep it at your house? It feels right here." I pressed a hand to my heart. Of course. We hung it on the wall together. A small moment, but it felt like stitching something back into place. Months passed. Seasons changed. Our relationship found a new rhythm, different from the old one, but worn in its own way. People sometimes ask what the most painful part of the whole experience was. It wasn't the distance. It wasn't even the moment he walked by without seeing me. It was the feeling of fading in someone's life without meaning to. The feeling of becoming a quiet note in a song you once helped compose. But life gives second chances in unexpected ways. Sometimes all it takes is one conversation, one open heart, one gentle step forward. As I sit here now, telling this story, the house feels warm again. The light above me glows softly. There is a simmering pot on the stove, filling the air with the scent of tomatoes and garlic. My son will be here soon. Leela, too. We will eat at the wooden table by the window, the one that holds so many memories of a time when my boy was small. And when they leave tonight, I know he will turn back. He will wave. He will smile. That is enough. The lesson I carry now is simple. Love is not about holding tight. Love is about staying open even when it hurts. About giving people space, but never closing the D. About remembering that relationships bend, stretch, and sometimes even break, but they can also mend. The day my married son walked past me like a stranger was not the end of our story. It was the moment we all learned how easy it is to lose someone quietly, and how much courage it takes to find them again.